Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday YouTube channel. I am your host, Ryan Hartley. This channel is for heart-centered leaders just like you. I hope our time spent together helps you leave a heartprint where those around you are left better than yesterday. These interview sessions are sponsored by our great friends at Elevate Online Marketing. On episode 169, I am joined by Chandler Bolt. Chandler is the CEO of Self-Publishing School and selfpublishing.com. He is the author of 6 best-selling books, including his most recent book, Published. Chandler makes a very generous offer, and you can be one of 50 people from this community to get a free copy of that very book. Listen very closely to Chandler in the show as he will explain how to get yourself one of those free copies, but be quick because there are only 50 available to this community. Chandler is also the host of the 7-Figure Principle podcast and the Self-Publishing School podcast. He has also graced the TEDx stage. You can find a link to his talk within the show notes, as well as all the good links to his socials and his business. This is episode 169 with Chandler Bolt. Chandler, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Ryan. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
So good to see you. I think you and I are connected by this idea that books change lives.
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Oh gosh, because I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
As a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD, I was someone who hated writing and hated reading, quite frankly. I mean, I remember growing up in school and in high school, and I was in all the advanced classes except for English. Sure. Because it meant I'd have to read more. And I'd have to write more and do papers and projects and all that stuff. And so I went from that to really, when I dropped out, I said, all right, well, I'm dropping out of school because I'm learning how to run a business from professors who have never ran a business. So that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to drop out, but I've got to operate like I'm still in school. And so instead of class, I need to go to conferences. Instead of curriculum, I need to read books. And so that's when I started to fall in love with books and see that, all right, my life is changing as a reader of books, and then started writing books. And then it's like, oh, wow, my life is changing as an author of books. And so that's what I think is just this powerful duality, is that books change the lives of readers, and then books change the lives of authors in the process of writing and publishing that book. And, not to mention all the stuff it can do for your life, for your business, for, the impact that you're going to make, the legacy that you have, kind of all those things.
Yeah, I love that. And how old were you when you dropped out of school then? Because that's some discipline to kind of instill, isn't it? Because it could have been so easy to do other things.
Yeah, I must have been 19 or 20.
Yeah.
About that time, and I was fortunate enough to just have very supportive parents where I think they did the right amount of challenging up front. And it's like, okay, is this just a rash decision? But then once they realized I'd really thought it through, and a lot of mentors that said, hey, I'd never really recommend this for anyone except for you. And I think in this case, you actually should. And so, but then they were supportive, and I convinced my mom. I was like, hey, you guys got some money stashed away for college. Can you like put a little bit of that towards like paying for conferences and reading books and stuff like that. And then one of my early hustles was I couldn't afford to go to a lot of these conferences. So I would just volunteer. And I'd reach out to the organizer and say, hey, I'll sweep the floors, I'll run the mics, I'll pick up speakers from the airport, like whatever you need to do to make your life easier while you run this event, I'll do it. I just want to be in the room. And so that worked. And I did that at least a couple times, maybe 3 times or something, 2-3 times. And so that has kind of kickstarted learning, and then just seeing, oh, wow, I'm, the smartest, most successful people in the world have spent years crystallizing the best things they know into a book. I call a book a $15 mentor, right? And so for $15 in a handful of hours, I can read it and learn from them. And I just started seeing, if I had any problem in business, I'd say, okay, well, what's the best book on this? And I'd read it and say, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. And then just implement it, and then read, and then implement, and then read and implement. And that's really, I think, why Self-Publishing School has grown so quickly, is because of that cycle.
It's a real gift. I think you said these words. It's a gift to humanity, isn't it? It's this product. I call it heart work. It's the creation. It's our heart's creation. It's for the love of it. And I just love. I mean, I've got a bookshelf here. I have to work hard to make sure it's self-development, not shelf development. Like, because I have a habit of just buying books that I never get around to
Your
read.
shelf esteem.
100%. This is it. And I just think I love the fact that we can come to books that are decades old and just find some such great wisdom. Are there any? There are a handful that have really been testament to the change in your life.
Oh gosh, so many. My first question, I think this changed the way I read. And I think it's changed the way other people have read as well. My first question, because people always ask this, is, hey, what's your favorite book, or what's the best book that you recommend? And my question, I answer it with a question, which is, what are you trying to learn and where are you trying to grow? And then based on that, I can make a recommendation. So I think that's the first and best question that people need to ask when they think about what book to read next. And because then that answers the question of, am I going to implement this within 30 to 45 days of reading that book? And if the answer is no, then don't read the book. And that's just in time learning. But then I look at kind of a couple buckets. I've got a couple videos and podcasts episodes on this, of like my top leadership books of all time, and then my top most impactful books of all time. And so a couple that are up on that list, Extreme Ownership is, I think, one of the best leadership books of all time. It just rocked my world and changed the way I view leadership. There's 80/20 Sales and Marketing, which is one of the best marketing books of all time. That and Influence by Robert Cialdini, I think, are two of the best marketing books of all time. Then as far as raw impact on my life, I'd say The Miracle Morning by a buddy of mine, Hal Elrod. Morning routines totally changed just my discipline and just everything. And then there's a bunch of other words, like, there's the seminal books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that's a yearly or every other year at the least, reread and that sort of thing. And then my book published is, it's impacted my life in terms of how it's grown the business. There's the first version of this book. It's brought in millions of dollars in sales for self-publishing school. And that's why I wanted to write the second edition, is because it's all right. How do we drop the mic and help people? How to help people write and publish books, right? And so that's been one of the ways where it's almost a reverse impact, right? As the author that's why I wrote the second edition is, I realized there was all these random people who had published books. They didn't even work with us at self-publishing school. They just read the book. It's like my brother was going out on tour with his band, and the guitar tech was like, hey, how's your brother doing? And he's like, how do you know my brother? He's like, oh, I read his book and I wrote a book. And then there's all these just like serendipity moments of, I went to this, it's like this barcade in Austin, Texas. And I'm there, just like playing games and stuff. Someone comes up, they're like, hey, are you the guy who wrote that book published? Like, nice. This is me and my sister. We read that and we both wrote books. And it just kept happening again and again. And you realize, all right, well, this book has changed my life, but also for me, I'm like, I need to make this better. It's been 6 years since it was published and all that stuff. So long answer to a short question.
Hey my friends, I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Just wanted to take a quick moment to let you know that this summer the Always Better Than Yesterday community turns 5. On Saturday, the 25th of June 2022, we're going to be hosting an event down here in Trowbridge in the southwest of England, where we're going to bring together like-hearted human beings with a little bit of inspiration, a whole lot of connection, and we're going to be celebrating this journey that we've all been on over the last 5 years. We have 3 guest speakers lined up. We'll be joined by Matt Hill, Esther McCann and Tommy Gentleman. We'll have welcome drinks provided by our sponsor Elevate Online Marketing, and we'll have food provided by Velicious. And after we've had some speakers, we've had some food and some welcome drinks, we will then start the party. We will have some music. We're going to have a live band performing live for us for the very, very first time. You can get your tickets now. Tickets are on sale. They are £20 per person. They will include your welcome drink and your evening meal. So go grab your tickets now in the show notes, and let's get back to the interview. I love that. And I saw that on your website, Hal had made a comment. He said he doesn't normally endorse other programs, but Chandler's program is the one. So let's talk about Self-Publishing School. What is it? Who do you serve?
Yeah. So Self-Publishing School, we're an online education company. We help people write and publish books that grow their impact, their income, and their business if they have one. And so that's kind of our bread and butter. We've got a nonfiction side of the company, which is like the largest part of the company, but then we've got a children's book side of the company and a fiction division of the company. And so, we help people write books that change lives and all that stuff. So I like to think of it kind of like a business accelerator or a semester or a year in college, but it's it's online education, and we work with people one-on-one and that sort of thing, and help people go through the process to write a great book, save hundreds of hours in the process, and hopefully save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in the process, and write a better book that sells more copies. So that's kind of what we launched in February 2015. We've published about 6,000 books since then, and we publish a book or two a day. And that we've been on the Inc. 5000. Like we've just been growing really quickly. And I think that's because we're passionate about what we do, and
so good,
and love helping people through books, man. It's a lot of fun.
I love that. And I think, one of the really cool things, because people are always saying to me, Ryan, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And I'm like, yeah, I will. And I will, but like, there's almost like an anxiety in me. There's that blank page feeling. And I like one of the questions within the book. It's like, I think we're all familiar with the concept of having a why for writing a book. I love the second question is why now?
Yeah.
That was really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said that, Ryan, because for so many people writing a book, it's on the maybe someday list or the maybe next year list. And it just keeps getting put off. And so I think you have to have a compelling reason why now, if you're going to get the book done. Right. And so that was even for me with the second edition of this book is like, it'd have been in the back of my head. I'm pushing it. I mean, you're running the business and doing all these things and moving, and it's like, there's never a good time. You're going to have to get started before you're ready. And so I think starting with that why, and then the why now, I think is a really, really important place to start, because then, you as you alluded to, I walked through kind of the exercises in the book. That's what you're going to need to keep at the forefront to help you keep moving through the process when it gets tough. Because it's not a matter of if it gets tough, it's a matter of when. And so it's important to have that at the forefront.
Yeah. What are those sort of tough times? What do they look like, sound like, feel like?
I think the toughest part as an author is getting your rough draft done.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when it becomes real. You've probably seen this. I talk about this, chapter 7, the 30-day rough draft challenge. And that's really what it's all. Once you get your rough draft done, you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you start to believe that this is possible. And so there's the committing to writing the book. There's the getting first words on the page, and then getting to rough draft, which I think is the hardest part. But if you get it, I think I just mentioned this, but if and when you get to the rough draft finish line, you'll start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You start to believe that this is possible. It goes from this thing that I'm thinking about doing, or like kind of this pipe dream, to, oh my gosh, this is happening. And that is what we found from coaching thousands of people through this process, is like, that is kind of the single indicator if someone's going to have success in the program, is like, do they get their rough draft done? So we really focus on that pretty heavily. We're in the middle of a push right now, to finish 200 rough drafts in Q1. I think we got about 70 so far. And so we're just focusing our whole community on that, because we've just seen how that unlocks the process. So that's probably the hardest part. And then I think the second hardest part is reading your rough draft and realizing, oh man, I got a lot of work to do to make this a final draft. And that's like kind of the messy middle, where you're in the throes of the whole book thing. And then you start to see, okay, this is getting close. I think you probably remember that's the chapter 8. I talk about the crisis of meaning that everybody goes through as they move into the editing process.
If I think about, pre being able to self-publish, your chances of becoming an author were mainly getting yourself a book deal, right? And that requires some level of exposure and someone being willing to go all in on your idea. And I guess you've assembled a team now. You've assembled a team. You've really unpacked the process, and you wrap around, authors with, what type of people do you surround them with that help them through that process?
Yeah. So really there's a couple, I mean, I think key people. I think you need it. It's funny. I always explain self-publishing school. It's kind of like a mix between Indiana Jones and Jillian Michaels. And so we talk about Indiana Jones, like we're going to blaze the trail and save you hundreds of hours in the process and show you the pitfalls to avoid and that sort of. So there's kind of this guide, and then there's the accountability. That's the Jillian Michaels, like to actually get it done. And so I think that is the 1-2 punch that I always look to, is like, okay, someone to show you the path, and then someone to hold you accountable. And sometimes that's like our coaches, right? But I think it's also important that people have someone in their day-to-day life. And so, whether people are working with us or not, I mean, that is important. That's a very critical part, where it's just like a gym buddy. It's just like, if you're trying to quit drinking and go to an AA meeting, or like all those things are built on accountability, right? And telling someone else you were going to do something, and then showing up to do that thing. And so that's so important in the book, in the book writing process, in the book publishing process, is the public accountability. It's why we kind of build it into the process. And I talk about this in the book of all right, posting, when you say like, I'm writing a book and my rough draft will be finished by whatever. Like we send a sign in the mail where the people fill it in. They can post a picture of themselves. It's like, my rough draft will be finished by this date. And just like that public accountability, it's scary, but it's what helps you keep going and stay on track. The 4 agreements talks about being impeccable with your word. And I think one of the most important things is that we're impeccable with our word to ourselves. For most people, myself included, that doesn't just happen. You have to first start by being impeccable with your word with other people. And so that's why I'm such a big, and then building that as a cornerstone habit. And then I think the next phase of mastery in that is being impeccable with your word to yourself. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's all we have. That's all we have is if I say I'm going to do something to myself, no one else has to know about it. I'm going to be impeccable with my word, because subconsciously, this is kind of going off on a tangent in a soapbox, but but subconsciously, if our subconscious says I cannot be trusted, like Chandler cannot be trusted because he told myself that he was going to do something and then he didn't do it, well, then that bleeds into everything that we do. And then we're not keeping our commitments to other people. Then we're not keeping our commitments to ourselves, to our kids, to our family, to our business partners, to our customer. Like that just bleeds into everything. And so I think that's a core part. It starts with accountability with others, but then ultimately the goal is to build that intrinsic impeccability with your word.
I love that. My mantra in life is to show up, have fun, do my best, and leave space for the miracles. And I was listening to your conversation with Catherine, and you talk about best is the standard.
Yeah.
I love that. Tell me about best is the standard.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It's I got that from Dabo Sweeney. He's the coach of the Clemson Tigers. So I know, John Gordon, Catherine's husband, writes about a lot. I actually just finished rereading his Power of Positive Leadership book, and he talks about Dabo a lot in there. But so best is the standard. I mean, it means it's funny. It's kind of your mantra, right? Which is especially the show up part is okay. Well, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to anything that we do, we're going to do to the best of our ability, and to the standard that we hold, and so that's something that I learned from my parents growing up, where, I came home with a bunch of A's and a B and a C or something. And they said that they were upset because they said, hey, this isn't your best. I said, well, hold up. My friend, he got C's and his parents aren't mad. How come you guys are mad? And they said, well, because we know what your best is, and this isn't it. And we will never hold you to someone else's standard. We're going to hold you to your personal best. And so that to me is what best is standard means. It is what is your personal best. And I think that's my responsibility as a leader, with my team and my, all those things is, okay, are you performing at your best?
Yeah.
I can, and not comparing your personal best to someone else's personal
Mm.
best.
I read I think it was John Wooden's book recently, and he talks about like peace of mind is the result of knowing that you gave your personal best, and it's just like
That's great. That's
it
a
is.
great quote. I love
Mm.
that.
Yeah, it's
That's
amazing.
awesome.
You talk about having an author's advantage. What is
Hmm.
the advantage of becoming an author?
Oh gosh, so many. I mean, I look at it as like it's this key that opens the door to Narnia, right? If you've seen the Chronicles of Narnia or read the books, they discover this key that opens this door to this magical world that they
Mm,
didn't previously know existed. And
mm,
that's what I look at with becoming an author, and really the author advantage is, the root word of authority is author, and you can't spell
mhm.
the word authority without the word author, right? Which, I mean, and that's just one part of it, but there's all of these things that opened up to me when I became an author, of getting interviewed on podcasts like this,
Mhm.
making a global impact where people are buying my books all around the
Yeah.
world, that started a business, like just all of these things. And so, but I think it starts, and a lot of those doors get opened when you write and publish a book. At least that was that. I mean, that's not everyone's path. That was just my path, and
Mm,
we've seen a lot of people walk that path. And so that to me is the author advantage. And then
mm,
it continues to grow as you write better books, sell more
mm,
copies, double down on what you've created, and kind of
mm.
move into what I would call the 1 year launch. And so that to me is the author advantage.
I love that. And there's, there are so many barriers that we put on ourselves to becoming that author. And I know that in the published author mindset section itself, you talk about, 7 or 8 different limiting beliefs that people hold, like don't have the time, don't have the money, the resources. Who am I to even write a book? I'm not
Yeah.
even an author. And I was listening to your episode again with Catherine, and you shared this story of a young girl who wrote a book, and she's testament of all of those overcoming. She hasn't had any of those limiting beliefs. She's just
Yeah.
crushed them all, and just got. I'd love for you to share that story about that young girl, if you would.
Yeah. So her name's Emma Sumner. Her dad joined self-publishing school years ago. We helped him write and publish a book, and then republish one of his books that he'd already published. And so she saw that. And so I think this is a lesson for parents, is when you commit to goals,
Yeah.
and following through what you say you're going to do, your kids, they pay attention. And so she saw that, and she said, "Hey, Dad, I want to do that." And he said, "All right, well, why don't you go write, 50 words and come back to me?" And figuring, that would be enough of a deterrent, that this is probably just a fleeting
Yeah.
dream. And she did. She came back a few hours later. She had it written. And so they went to Panera Bread every weekend for a bit. And then she ended up writing and publishing a kid's book. It's called The Fairies of Waterfall Island. The book made about $4,000 in the first 3 months. She donated a ton of money to autism awareness. She was
Wow.
on all these local TV shows, like her and I were on Good Morning Sacramento, like all these cool things. Speaking gigs. She's got a monthly allowance that
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
from royalties from her book. Like, her life is forever changed. And then as a result, this is circling all the way back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this interview, is leveraged impact,
Yeah.
right? That book goes on to impact thousands of people. Yes. But now, we've had kids show up to our conferences. We've got other kids writing books. We've got
Mm,
other employees' kids writing, but like, just all of these kids are seeing that and saying, "Oh, I want to do that too." And so
mm.
it's just created this ripple effect that's just continued to grow. So it's pretty cool and inspiring to see, and it just kind of always gets me fired up.
Mm. I love that. That's such a great. I know many of my listeners will be parents, and yeah, they're always watching, aren't they? They're always watching, and that's so
No
powerful.
doubt.
I spot the bracelet that you're wearing that you had on at your TEDx talk. I'd be honored if you'd share us that story.
Yeah. So gosh, it's kind of a long story. I shared it at the end of the book, which somebody asked me recently, and they're like, "Why did you wait to put this story at the end of the book?" Um, and it's really a story about a friend who unexpectedly passed away, and reminded me of why I do what I do.
Mm,
And talking to his dad after he passed away, he said the only good that can come out of this is if other people's lives are impacted by the fact that this happened.
mm,
And after he passed away, I found out that he had attended one of my random trainings and had actually written most of a draft of a book. And so we were actually able to, with the help of his friends, they published his book after he passed away. And so that was just a big reminder for me of why I do what I do. And really at a crossroads in my life, kind of saying, all right, I'm going to put away a lot of the stuff that doesn't matter and focus
mm,
on what actually does. My family, my friends, my faith, and what I'm doing with self-publishing school. Like
mm.
those are those are the things that are truly making an impact and are what I want to be remembered for. And so that was just that was a big wake-up call for me, and ultimately what led to the decision to double down on self-publishing school and grow. And this bracelet, it says on one side, it says make him proud, and on the other side, it says WWKD. So what would Kendall do?
Yeah,
His name is Kendall. So it's a daily reminder
yeah.
to live out that I'm living for two now,
Mm,
and to live out and to make him proud, with
thank
what
you.
I'm doing and with what we're doing. So it's been on my wrist every
Yeah.
day since then.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And I know it must take you back. And I have no idea how you got through that TEDx talk. And my lip would have been wobbling, and I'd have probably had a. So fair play to you, my friend, for getting it through. So you've been very kind. You made a generous offer with the book. Tell us a little bit about that offer.
Yeah. So the new book, is the second edition, just launched within the last couple of months. So it's called Published: The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. This is for anyone who's thinking about writing a book, and you want to figure out what it takes and how you can use a book to grow your business, how to sell more
Mm,
copies, how to write a better book, all those things. I think it'll be really helpful for you. Obviously, you can grab a copy on Amazon, or you can grab the audiobook. It's narrated by me, and I think it's a fun kind of a way to experience the book. So definitely recommend the Audible version or the audiobook. But for the first 50 people who would like a physical copy of this book, I've created a little link for you, and you can get it for free. Okay, for being a
thank
friend
you,
of the
brother.
show here. So if you go to publishedbook.com/ABTY.
Thank
All
you, my friend.
right.
Amazing. Go take advantage of that very, very
Publishedbook.com
kind offer. I have a
forward slash
physical copy
ABTY.
here. It's great. It's just, yeah, I love. I'm an image kind of guy as well, so it's just the way that it's designed and the little
Yeah.
sections you can write in. It's a great book, my friend. So thank you, and thank you very, 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 very much for the kind offer. I definitely encourage everyone to go and take advantage of that. And what does the phrase "always better than yesterday" mean to you?
Mm. Always better than yesterday to me, it's very similar to one of our core values at self-publishing school, which is hard work and continuous improvement.
Mm, mm,
and, and I believe in showing up and working hard and getting better every single day,
yeah.
the pursuit of excellence. And that is what hard work and continuous improvement means. That was what always better than yesterday means. It's how can we do better today than we
Mm,
did yesterday, and how do we make incremental improvement so that we can better serve our students, so that we can get better at helping publish books, so that we can
mm.
be the best version of ourselves personally and professionally, showing up at work, showing up at home. uh, it's a it is very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I'm pretty obsessed with.
Yeah, I love it,
So
man.
I
Feel it.
love the focus of this show.
Thank you, man. I've absolutely loved our conversation. I want to be super respectful of your time. I'd be honored if you'd leave us with a final thought from your good self.
Yeah. So my final thought would be, there's never going to be a perfect time to
Hmm.
write and publish a book. If this is something that you're serious about, get started with it and commit to it. And I'd encourage you to, go to the link, grab one of the free physical copies of the book, but really just to dive into the mind map. Like that's the very first, or the best. That's the best first step. You'll see that I walk through that process. in chapter 5. So you can just skip to chapter 5, spend 15 minutes to create a mind map, and that's going to send you on your way to writing and publishing a great book. So get started. Don't wait. There's never going to be a perfect time.
Love that. Thank you for the impact you're having, my friend. And I look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you, Ryan.
Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end of the interview here on YouTube. I hope that our time spent together has left you a little bit better than before you push play. Before you go anywhere, please leave a comment down below, some of your key reflections, your key takeaways. I love hearing from you and what this conversation has inspired in you. Let me know what you're going to do as a result of this conversation. I will be back next Wednesday where I will share another inspiring guest. To make sure that you don't miss that, please do subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as soon as it goes live. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organization, please do visit alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com, and it will be my honor and privilege to help you in any way I can. Keep leading, my friends. I've been Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast here on YouTube. Always love.